Hi guys, welcome to my channel today. My name is Defender, and today I'm going to be showing you guys how DNS works behind the scenes. For this example, I'm going to be using my domain, which is buildattackdefend.net. We're going to be using a command line tool called dig to be able to demonstrate how we're able to query other name servers and get referrals from those name servers, right? So for example, we're going to query one of the 13 root name servers, from there the top level domain, and then the authoritative name server to be able to get the IP address of the domain we're trying to get. Now, again, assuming that our DNS local cache does not know about this, the IP address we're looking for, that case being, for example, our browser, operating system, or even our DNS resolver, which is usually provided by our ISP, or if we're using a DNS service provider like Cloudflare or Google. Now, without further ado, let's just go straight to it. So I'm going to do dig, and we'll just query. We'll see what's popping right now. It'll be a.root-servers.net. Now, this is the one we got so far, but I'm going to show you guys what's the other 12 remaining root name servers out there. The reason why, so you're gonna get a random one. The reason is because redundancy, load balancing, and performance. Be able to give you what's the best name server available to you that's giving you the performance that you need, right? So we'll just query that name server, and I'll put the domain I'm trying to get the IP for. So we have the 13 root name servers up here, going from, I believe, A all the way to L. Yep, I saw L right here. So in alphabetical order from A to L is 13. I see here that for every name server, we have two records, right? The A record maps the domain to an IPv4, which right here we have an IPv4 address, and then the 4A's maps the domain to an IPv6 address. So again, we're just going to do a random one. Now these are not, again, sorry for the confusion, these are not the 13 name servers, right? These are the top level domain name servers, but if you want to see what other name servers are out there, these are the ones, right? So it says root, we have A through L. So these are, again, A maps to IPv4, 4A's map to IPv6, a.root-servers.net is the one we're going to be using, but you can use either of these, right? Sorry about that. So again, we're going to query, we're going to ask this root name server saying, hey, do you know the IP address of this domain? Now, our root server is going to say, look, I don't know the IP address of the domain you're trying to give me, but I do know the top level domain, which is .net, right? So the top level domain, for example, can be anything ranging from .com, .org, .net, or .mil for military. So we're going to query a random TLD name server. And we're going to say, okay, now we're going to ask this name server, do you know anything about buildattackdefend.net? Now, the TLD name server is going to say, look, I don't know the IP address of that name server, but I do know the authoritative name server for that domain that might know the IP address of that domain you are trying to get. And it points to the john.ns cloudflare.com name server or the eve.ns.cloudflare name server. We're going to use the first one. You can use either one, honestly. And we're going to say, okay, now let's query the authoritative name server for build-detect-defend.net, and it gives us an A record of an IPv4 address 76.76.21.21. Now, I'm like, okay, let's check this IPv4 out. This IPv4 address, we'll do Brave browser, and we're going to, forgot to put a space there. So now look, this is not my domain. This is vercel.com, and I was confused at first why this happened. And as I did my research, I later realized that I am hosting my domain on Hashnode. And so I was like, look, you know what? Let's actually figure out what the IP of Hashnode's server is, right? So basically you do the same thing, right? Let's go up arrow key, and we're going to do hashnode.com. Now the TLD is .com. You saw for my domain it was .net. For hashnodes.com we're going to use this TLD, a random one, name server. Now we have a variety of authoritative name server, right? We have, for example, Duke.ns, Eve.ns, pointing to different IPv4s and IPv6, right? I'm pretty sure this is for availability purposes and redundancy. And then we're just going to query the authoritative name server. And then the IPv4 is very similar to the one of my domain, right? So we're going to figure this out. You know, okay, Brave. And the IPv4 of Hashnode, okay, it's the same thing. So then we're going to use another command line tool, which is WHOIS. I'm going to clear this. Now we're going to say, hey, who is this IP for, right? IPv4, right? And we see here that it belongs to Vercel Inc. And then we're going to do for my domain, which is .21.21, and it's going to be the same thing. The reason being is because, as I did my research, Hashnode is using Vercel as its DNS architecture provider, right? So basically, Vercel is a company where Hashnode hosts its platform for other users to use, right? And then I am hosting my domain on Hashnode to use my domain, right? To provide this content to you guys. Now, let's do this for Google, right? I mean, you can practice this with other websites. You know, the more comfortable you get to understand how DNS, the better. So we'll do, instead of having to do the process all over again, we'll just query the top level domain for google.com, which is right here, dig, and this is going to be the top level domain for google.com. And then it points us to an authoritative name server for Google. Now you see here the difference is that it's not cloudflare.com, right? It's using its own DNS infrastructure, which is google.com. Now we're going to query that authoritative name server, and we're going to, let's see what we get. Now we have different IPv4s here. We're just going to pick a random one. Before I even open that IPv4 on a browser, let's actually run a WHOIS on the IP, right? WHOIS 142.251.16.139, and we see here that it belongs to Google LLC. Now, I am going to pop the IP on my browser, and we see here that it translated basically to google.com. So google.com translates to that IP address, right? And that's how DNS works behind the scenes. Now, I hope you guys learned something valuable from my lab today, so that way you guys are able to reinforce the how DNS works through practicing on the keyboard, being able to, play around with things on the keyboard. But, always be mindful not to cause any disruption to any system or services online with any tools that you use. It's all for educational purposes. Yep, that'll be all for today. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks.